They want you to have all your information on your phone. There will be a time in the future when you cannot go out without your phone. They want to have your money in an electric grid so that they can then control it. They want to disappear cash. They want you to only use the currencies issued by the central bank digital currencies. And when I say they, I mean the organization run by this man. It's not Santa Claus, it's Klaus Schwab. He runs an organization that is essentially leading the future of the world, and they want everything to be digitalized. But there are some countries that don't follow these rules, that don't want to control their citizens to the point of having all the money issued by a central bank in a digital currency so that they can then tax it, they can then take it away from you, they can then close your account like they did in Canada. Canada is one of the biggest proponents of this whole movement towards CBDCs. So I want you to look at the options around the world. Don't just think that, oh, CBDCs are coming, these digital currencies are going to control all our life, digital IDs, biometrics. Some people are going to the supermarket and paying with their face or paying with their fingerprint. They don't know that they will be controlled based on their biometrics. They don't want to use cash anymore because it's not convenient, but they don't know that they are creating the future of control. They're creating a future where your biometrics can be used against you. So I want to show you countries around the world. I'm going to use this central bank digital currency tracker, and I'm going to tell you from my experience what countries around the world use cash. What countries around the world are not following what these countries are following with this agenda for the next couple of years. So we can go here to the CBDC tracker and we can see all the different countries of the world and the status of their development, of their launches, of their CBDC. So if we see the United States right here, we see that it's in development, but obviously the United States is pushing hard for this. They now proposed a new bill to absolutely control cryptocurrency. They want to bash Bitcoin so that then the central banks can buy more Bitcoin to try to control crypto. The US is an entire mess. I renounce my US citizenship. I recommend you do the same, not live in the US, not do anything like that. So we can see that it's in development. If we then go on to Mexico, for example, it says, and Bahamas already says launched. So you have to be careful with the Bahamas, even though it's a tax haven, it's very connected to the US. It's very digitalized, so you do have to be careful with that, although they have great banks, they have great infrastructure. Mexico, it says in development. Now, Mexico is a cash-heavy society. Mexico, for me, it's one of the freest countries in the world. It's a country that is not going to harass you for your taxes, for your money. Yes, you have the cartels, you have internal issues in Mexico, but the government itself is not out there to control its citizens. And you, as a foreigner, or if you become Mexican in the future, you will see that it's one of the freest places that you've ever encountered in the whole world. You can drive your car however you want to drive it. You can run your business however you want to run it. You can bring income from other countries, although I don't recommend to bring a lot of money to Mexico. And I don't really see a CBDC launching in Mexico, at least for the next 10 years or even more, because it is such a cash-heavy society. If we go to other places that I absolutely love, like here in Eastern Europe, I always recommend Serbia. I recommend Montenegro. And if we look at these countries, Montenegro is in development because it's going to be part of the EU in the next couple of years. It's obviously allied with all these countries that want to launch CBDCs, but there's nothing from the other countries. There's nothing from Serbia. There's nothing from Romania. There's a little bit from Hungary. They're doing some research. That is why I recommend Eastern Europe so much. They don't want to have digital IDs. The population is cash heavy. They don't want to be controlled by a digital currency. People in Serbia, people in Eastern Europe, they don't care what the government says. If the government wants to control them, they do whatever they want because they've been through communism in the last couple of decades. They fought a war in the last 40 years and they know what that feels like. They don't want to go back to that repression, to that control. So they let you live freely. And if you become a citizen of Serbia or a citizen of any of these Eastern European countries, you will see the freedom that you can have by being in these countries. That is why I talk about them a lot, and that is why they don't have any CBDC, any digital ID, no biometric tracking, anything like that. In Europe, obviously the European Union is heading towards CBDCs, but there are some countries that are heading faster than others. For example, Germany is a lot worse than Spain. Spain is a bit more cash heavy, even though everybody accepts cards, but they're a lot better than Germany, a place that completely wants to control your money and wants to tax you and wants to make sure that you follow what the government says. If we go to other parts of the world, we can go down here to Latin America, South America specifically. In Brazil, it says development. In Argentina, it says research. In Chile, it says research. Paraguay, it says research Latin America and South America, specifically Mercosur, is one of the regions that you should be looking at. I mentioned it in another video. If you get residency or citizenship in Argentina and Brazil, you're essentially creating a World War III preparation scenario, because you can escape to one of these countries if there is a world war. And you're also creating an option against CBDCs, against digital IDs, against all this biometric control that governments are trying to impose. And I don't really see these countries, specifically now Argentina with Milei, they want to get rid of the central bank, so obviously there will be no central bank digital currency. These countries are going in the right direction. They might be having some communist feeling. They might be in some aspects of society going in the wrong direction, but in trying to control your life, in trying to control your finances as a foreigner or as a naturalized citizen, they are nowhere like the United States, like Canada, like the European Union. Now, another part of the world that I talk about a lot is the Gulf, specifically the United Arab Emirates. And if we check their status, you can see that it's in pilot. Qatar is in research, Bahrain is already in development, Oman is in research, but the UAE is in pilot. And the use case is retail and wholesale. The UAE is one of those countries that keeps your biometrics, that has some certain biometric control over its citizens, that keeps a lot of information on its citizens and on its residents. So when it comes to CBDCs, I cannot say that Dubai is a great place. It's a cash-heavy society, but it has control over everything. Biometrics, when you get in and out of the country, they have it in a system. You can check if somebody's outside of the country or somebody's inside of the country. You can check it on the system very easily. You can check the bank accounts that somebody has. You can just put their name in the system. Obviously, a person from the government has to access this, but they can check all your bank accounts, all the companies that you own, essentially everything you have in Dubai or in the UAE, they can track it and they can see it. For me personally, it's a great place for taxes, for having a company, for doing investing, real estate, having somewhere that is not woke like the West. But in terms of CBDCs, I do have to say that the UAE is heading in the wrong direction, in more control and in more biometric tracking, unfortunately. And the last part of the world that I talk about a lot, with the exclusion of Africa. Obviously in Africa, you don't really have that much CBDC, except in places like Nigeria, where they actually even launched the CBDC already. Africa in general, I think it's a great place if you want to invest early. If you want to get a passport that is not that great now, but is going to increase in the future, is going to improve in the future, then obviously Africa, Mauritius, Seychelles. South Africa is having power issues, and overall it's almost a failed state at this point. But if you want to get really good deals on some properties, then it could be something to look at. I'm personally not looking at Africa that much. That is where the last region would be Southeast Asia, all over Asia. Thailand, a place that I talk about a lot, to have a Thai elite visa, to enjoy the beach, to be free to a certain extent, but they have already launched their pilot for the CBDC. And the Thai government is very nationalistic. If you're a foreigner or a resident, they don't really care that much about your rights. They don't really care that much about how long you've been in Thailand or anything. They won't even give you a passport, even if you were born there and lived there 20 years. So if you're not a citizen of Thailand, I would advise caution. The same thing that I said in World War III preparation, you have to know the status of the citizens versus the residents of a country. If Thailand doesn't care about you because you're a resident, you have to have other options. So Thailand, great place to be free, great place for a lot of people for dating, great place to enjoy nature, great place to be away from the West, but just keep it in the back of your mind that they are going the direction of CBDCs and you are a foreigner in Thailand. So you cannot just be 100% sure about the country. The same applies for other countries like Singapore, a country that controls its citizens a lot, that has extremely strict laws, that has a lot of biometric tracking, and they already launched the pilot of their CBDC. So for Asia, you have to keep in mind that these countries are launching CBDCs. They are tracking you. They are heading in the direction of digital IDs. So enjoy them while you can, get residency, get banking in these Southeast Asian countries, but be careful. And Indonesia is still in development. I personally love Indonesia. I love Bali, and it's heading in the right direction. Obviously a country with a massive population, so you can benefit from the fact that they have not launched a CBDC yet. CBDCs, climate change lockdowns, traffic congestion controls like they're doing now in New York. Every time you enter New York, you have to pay a fee just to contain the traffic. They're doing that to raise more money. They're doing that because the city is broke. They're doing that because they brought a lot of migrants that nobody wanted, but you have to pay for it. If you want to go into the city, you have to pay a fee. There will be a time when there will be 15-minute cities and people are controlled because we don't want to change the climate. You have to know the direction of the world. You have to know the direction of these Western countries. So that is why you need to have residency or citizenship and Mexico. In Serbia, other Eastern European countries, as I mentioned, countries in Africa could potentially be good. South America, countries that are not heading in biometric control direction and CBDC direction, so that you can always have options. If you want to see a full breakdown on countries that you should consider around the world, then check out this video right here on World War III preparation. I mentioned different countries around the world where you should have residency, where you should have citizenship, where you should be aware of their laws and how they treat people in their country. Check it out right here.